My wife and I lived in a remote cabin in Canada with our 2 children for nearly 10 years. It was the kind of life most people dream about. Quiet forests. No traffic. No cities. Just nature. Our cabin was so isolated there weren't even roads leading to it. A few other families lived miles away in scattered cabins, and over time faint trails formed between our homes from years of visiting each other for dinners and trading supplies. We had a small vegetable farm and several animals, including cattle and chickens. Life was peaceful for a very long time. Until one night everything changed. I was sitting alone in the living room reading late at night when I suddenly heard the cattle outside moving frantically. That immediately caught my attention because they were usually calm after dark. I walked over to the window overlooking the field and pulled the curtain aside. The cattle had gathered tightly along the far left fence, almost like they were trying to get away from something. Then I noticed the deer. It stood partially behind a tree at the edge of the forest. Completely still. Watching the house. At first I thought nothing of it, but the longer I stared the more uncomfortable I became. The deer wasn't grazing or moving naturally. It simply stood there frozen, facing directly toward the cabin. I remember wondering why the cattle seemed terrified of it. Eventually I convinced myself I was being paranoid, closed the curtain, and went back to reading. A few weeks later my wife woke me up in the middle of the night. I could see fear in her face immediately. "Listen," she whispered. At first I heard nothing. Then slowly, from outside the cabin, came the sound of something dragging along the walls. Scratch. Scratch. I got out of bed immediately, checked on the kids, grabbed my hunting rifle, and began looking out each window. Nothing. 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 Then I reached the bedroom window. The deer stood there again at the edge of the trees. Motionless. Watching. A heavy feeling settled over me that I still can't properly explain. I had spent most of my life around wildlife, and I knew animals didn't behave this way. I closed the curtain immediately. The next morning I decided to visit one of my neighbors to ask whether they'd experienced anything strange lately. Before leaving, I told my wife to keep the doors locked and stay inside with the children. The walk to my neighbor's cabin took nearly an hour through the forest trails. The entire way there I kept trying to rationalize everything that had happened. The deer stood directly on the trail less than 20 feet away. My blood ran cold instantly. In daylight I could finally see its eyes clearly. The irises showed white around the edges, and the pupils looked disturbingly human. Not animal. Human. The thing stared directly into me. I ran. I don't mind admitting that now. I sprinted all the way to my neighbor's cabin nearly in tears. When I finally explained everything, he listened quietly without interrupting. But what terrified me most was that he didn't seem surprised. He told me stories about Navajo skinwalkers and said they sometimes appeared as animals. According to him, they only revealed themselves when they wanted something from you, or when you had unknowingly disturbed them. He spoke about it so calmly that it made my fear even worse. I left shortly afterward and hurried home. For weeks afterward I barely slept. Every noise outside made me reach for my rifle. Eventually the sighting stopped, but the feeling never did. The peace I once felt living in that cabin disappeared forever. Not long after, we moved closer to town. I told my wife we were doing it for the children, but the truth was I couldn't handle the fear anymore. It's been almost 15 years since that happened. And to this day, I've never told my family what I really saw standing on that trail.